Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, singers of all ages, welcome to Fireside Live. Tonight, our special guest is the CEO and owner of Hollyday Management, Holly Moore. She is live from beautiful Los Angeles, California. And now, here is our host, straight from the billiard room, Dr. B, your voice teacher!
Thank you. We're so happy to have you all here today on Fireside Live. So I know we've been all watching the news and we have been stuck in our homes, but the artistic community has come together like never before. And they've given us free performances online, including Andrew Lloyd Webber and his wonderful musicals every weekend on the Show Must Go On YouTube channel. Also, the Metropolitan Opera has given us the Met on Demand, a free opera every night. Now that reminds me, you might have heard of this in the news before the whole shutdown happened. There was an opera company out west that wanted to put a frog on stage. That's right, a little bitty, tiny frog. But let me tell you, her performance was absolutely riveting. We're missing our laughs. There they are. That's okay. Thank you. Well, you know, she was a soprano, and you might have heard about this female frog opera singer. She had quite a range. She could go super high. She could also go very low. In fact, she was what you would be known as a deep sea diva. But seriously, frogs don't swim in the sea. That's ridiculous. Anyway, speaking of water, I sing in the shower all the time. And it goes great until I get soap in my mouth. Then it becomes a soap opera. But you know, seriously, folks, you know, my students always know that they can count on me. I am here for you. You just have to call me. Just remember the first 3 digits of my phone number. It's my ARIA code. Hey-o! We're so happy to have our special guest this evening, all the way from beautiful Los Angeles, California. I present to you the CEO and owner of Hollyday Management, Holly Moore. There she is.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Very glad to have you tonight. We just so glad to see an IUP alum out there killing it, doing great, and we're really proud of you. And we know that you're going to bring a lot of wonderful information to our students who are listening live right now.
Wow, I'm so excited. Let's get started.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start with a pretty basic question, and that's, what do you do?
Okay, great. So what I do is I am an artist manager. And artist management is a culmination of a lot of things. I specifically work with up-and-coming musicians and artists who want to take over the musical realm and take over the industry. So as a manager, you are the person who is building the artist's career. And what that entails is you're sometimes, you know, the babysitter who has to kind of hold the artist's hand and walk them through what they're supposed to be getting done. Some of it is negotiating. So, you know, negotiating contracts to make sure my artists, you know, can perform places, for endorsements, any kind of deals that are going to be going on with the artist. I'm the person that sits down and vouches for the artist and says, you know, they need to be making this amount of money, and I negotiate those contracts for them. And essentially just being the person who makes things happen. So utilizing my own strategic planning and tools and resources, my connections to really help build their career, and make sure that they are on the right path to wherever their artistry is taking them. I will say that being an artist manager is a little bit tricky sometimes, only because it is a 24/7 job. So I do sometimes get those phone calls at 2 a.m. where my artist is freaking out about a song that they're writing, or they're like, oh, did we submit this paperwork, or just some kind of odd end thing that is on their mind at 2 a.m. So that's the one thing about being a manager is tricky, but overall you are the person who is building the career for the artist.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's a
of
lot.
work.
It's almost like being a parent.
So now, okay, so we're artists are, would you say we're babies and we have to hold our hand? That might be true. Okay, anyways. Well, here's a question that's I was wondering, and that is, how did you get here? What took you from your roots here in Pennsylvania to where you are now?
Great question. So I left IUP in 2016, which was sad, a little bittersweet, but I left IUP and made my way across the country. I applied to get into California State University Northridge for their master's in music industry administration. That's a long, fancy term for saying music business. But it is one of the very few master's programs in the country for music industry studies. They do have an undergraduate program as well, but the master's program is really, it's a really in-depth look into various different aspects of the music industry. So I came, I studied, I worked hard, and then while I was studying, I was working in a company that does business management. And in Los Angeles and in some of the bigger cities throughout the country, you'll find that musicians and producers and whoever else is involved in entertainment, they have business managers, so people who handle their money and, accountants and those kind of things. So I was working there at a different company. And then I got promoted within the company, which was great. It was great that I thought, but then it turned into, an environment that I didn't see myself growing in. And I, have always had the passion to be a manager. And I said, I'm just going to start doing my own thing. And so I did. I started a company. I met with investors. I have a few mentors, and now I'm building this company. I've got a couple assistants working under me. And I just kind of went and did it. And I found that with anything that you do, if you just go and do it, you'll be successful, because you're going to have that passion to do it. So I started out, working for someone else, and now I'm working for myself, and I'm growing every day. I talk to artists. I'm bringing on new artists all the time. And yeah, it's just keeping that forward momentum going. And that's how I ended up where I am and where I'm continuing to go. That's
really awesome. What a cool journey to find your way to being a CEO.
Yes, it's great because when you're your own boss, there are a lot of decisions, a whole lot of hard decisions that go into it. Mm-hmm. One being, can I really be my own boss? Can I really own my own company? Can I do my own thing? And I always encourage people to do that because, like I said, once you just start doing it, everything will kind of fall into place. You kind of figure out how to do more. Because there's areas like as an artist manager, there's some stuff that I know hardcore, like I know it and it's factual and all that. And then there's areas where I may not know necessarily, but then being my own CEO and owning my own company and working for my artist kind of forces me to go learn those extra skills and tools as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So we have, you started out in college here as a classical artist. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up going to the world of pop? How did that happen? What's up with that?
I've always been kind of intrigued with what goes on in the music industry as far as the pop side of things. Whether it's just listening to some of my favorite artists or researching about them, learning who they work with and their teams. Okay. And I'm finding that it doesn't necessarily matter whether they are a pop artist or a classical artist or a composer. Everyone needs a team. Maybe not a manager per se, but they need someone who's going to be there to help them in their creative process. But I've always been drawn to it, and I am fortunate enough to be able to have resources and meet people who are just already working in the pop sector of the industry. And it's such a wide and vast area of the industry to work in. There's so many things that fit under the pop music element. I mean, you have your typical pop artists, but then you've got, some singer-songwriters, you've got indie artists, there's so much more to it than just like a straight narrow path, which is also what I like. You get to be diverse. I have, I currently have 6 clients, and not one of them is the same to another. They're all different, but they all kind of fit into the industry in similar ways.
That's really cool. So how do the skills that you learned in the classical program, how does that help you in what you're doing now?
I would say the biggest skills that I learned was how to really work hard. It's when you work in an industry that is so massive, it's not necessarily about how talented you are. And yes, talent's important, but it's important that people see how hard you work and how much time and effort you're putting into it. And I think that's the biggest thing coming from the classical music realm into this new industry sector, is that you really have to want it more than anyone else, and you have to work harder than anyone else.
Sure.
There is no, if you have, I like to say, if you have free time, you're not doing it right. So, I mean, my days are scheduled out almost to the minute. I do set aside some free time every now and then, but you have to really work hard. And I think coming from the classical music realm and knowing how much work it takes there really helped me kind of use it towards what I'm doing now. Sure.
Yeah. As you know, and those of you who are music students watching, we work very hard. Very hard. And sometimes it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but there is.
There is, I promise.
So how could you help today's students? What advice or we know to work hard, but
I think the biggest thing I would say is it's probably the same thing I would say to my clients who are, artists themselves and are more in the creative space, is to not give up on what you do, even when things are difficult, when things change. I know with this whole COVID thing, everyone's kind of like, what do I do? I'm on this pause, those kind of things, is to be adaptable, but also be true to what you're doing and what you want and what your goals are. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is too, if there's an aspect of the music industry that you're interested in, do some research, meet some people, make connections. It's one of those things where you don't have to be one specific track, branch out a little bit, see what works for you. Right. I know for me, going from, my initial goal was to sing at the Met, and now I'm over here making sure that my artists are playing at, the House of Blues and all these really cool places. Sure. It's all encompassing. There's so much about it that I think as a student, you just have to really go out and research, get the information, figure out what works for you.
Sure. Now that was when you were here, your senior year, we did the Magic Flute.
We did.
You sang the Queen of the Night.
Yes.
You destroyed it. That's still on the internet, by the way.
I know. Every time somebody I meet is like, well, what did you used to do? And I was like, I sang them on YouTube.
There you go. Yeah, so you all can go check out Holly. You can see that was Oliver Lowe's first year, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah. I think my senior recital is still up as well, so I'm on.
Awesome. So you go check out Holly. Well, let me ask you this. Do you ever get out the pipes and rock some Queen of the Night?
I have actually. So what's great about the music industry, and you meet all kinds of different people, and I host the occasional, dinner party or some kind of thing, amongst, industry friends, and do some networking and stuff. But those are the times where I'm like, oh yeah, I used to sing. You guys want to hang out? I'll sing for you, those kind of things. But other than that, not too much. There's for my end of things, there's not too many opportunities to do that. But right. Occasionally I'll just, I'll invite some people over and we'll sing and have a good time. And so I make it a point to sing even when no one's around, because it is one of those things where when you build your tool for that long, you don't ever want to, leave it behind. But
Sure.
I make some opportunities.
That's good. Well, that leads me to this. Maybe it's kind of a tough question. I don't know. But you spent 4 years training that way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think, boy, if I would have gone into management sooner, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'd like to be really self-reflective, especially because I am running my own business, and you have to be in that sense. There are times where I'm like, man, if I had gone into this area sooner, or if I'd continued with the performance aspect, there's always going to be those moments of, man, like, should I have done this, or what if I had done
Sure.
this? But I think everything happens for a reason. I think that, when you really genuinely find what you want to do, not just with your head and what makes sense, but what's in your heart as well, you make it work, and I think things happen for a reason. So
Sure.
I think I wouldn't have been able to be where I am now without taking that performance route first, building those skills and those attributes. I certainly wouldn't be as successful now without having that.
Sure.
And I don't think I would be able to be a manager without having that background either. It's beneficial, I think, for the people that I work with to know, hey, I was a performer. I was on the stage. I know what it's like.
Sure.
And then go to my artists, when they have questions or if they need help with things, I can say, yeah, I can be your manager. But if you need help in these other areas, I have that skill set too. So.
You know what it feels like to just want green M&Ms. Sometimes that's just what you want, and that's okay. That's okay. All right. Just don't rip the place up. Anyway, because I've got a feeling if I would have talked to you as a sophomore or junior and went, hey, Holly, you ever heard of this business management thing? Wouldn't that be great? You probably would have told me to go jump in the lake.
I would not have even known what you were talking about. But when it came later in my career there, when I did dig in and do some research and really kind of figured it out, it was the right time for me to figure it out.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's all about timing and really knowing what you want, 10 years from now, and
sure.
just those kind of things.
I'm going to let the people know that if they want to go ahead and start sending questions, go ahead and shoot. I've already got one here, so go ahead and type them in, and we will get to all of them, I promise. Well, let me ask you this, because you're on the other side now. The rest of us are scraping and scrounging, trying to get work, trying to get someone like you to represent us. What are you looking for in an artist?
Good question. This is the exact conversation that I typically have with people who are interested in me as a management service. Mm-hmm. Is I'm looking for talent, but I know there's a lot of talent out there. It's rare to find people who aren't talented. So I'm looking for talent. I'm looking for people who really have something that sparks, whether it's, this one particular client I have, their live performance aspect is phenomenal. But then I have another client who is an excellent singer-songwriter. It's different with each person that I interact with. So I'm looking for talent. I'm looking for things that spark, things that, jump out. But I'm also looking for genuine people to work with as well. Someone who is going to be collaborative with me, as opposed to, if they're asking me for an opinion or they're asking me for a game plan, they don't turn around and do the opposite of what we've talked about. And people who are really in this for the long haul, people who say, I want this so bad, I've sacrificed everything else for it. Because that means they're going to work just as hard as I work for them.
Yes. That's great. This hard work thing keeps coming back around. Interesting.
It's like it's required or something.
I just want to take a moment of silence for hard work to let it sink in. Later, do it on your own. Okay. I've got a question here.
Okay.
This comes from last week's guest, the Singing Samurai.
Okay.
He wants to know what you would say to an aspiring pop singer studying classical voice but wanting to be a pop singer.
I would say you're on the right track by studying classical voice to begin with. And I say that because the artists that I am bringing on or are currently work with, they all, for the most part, are taking lessons and with teachers who have more of a classical background.
Wow. Okay.
Because I also come from that realm, I understand the importance of having proper technique, especially if you're going to go on a tour, you're going to be on the road for 6-7 months out of the year. You have to protect your voice. You have to keep it healthy. So definitely you're on the right track there. What I would also say is to just to do it. If you want to write songs, or if you have a friend who writes songs, be collaborative, find people who are going to be able to help you, in a sense that if you don't have a specific skill or you're building a specific skill, find someone who has that skill and work with them. But the biggest thing is to just do it. Don't second guess yourself to the point where you talk yourself out of it. Because we all do that too. I would say, just try it, just do it. And I think you'll be amazed at the fact that you can actually do it. And then you'll start to really progress more.
Wow, that's really great. Yep, keep going. Keep going. That's awesome. I'm looking for some more questions from the peanut gallery out there. Whatever, anybody want to turn their video on and ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely. I will answer anything. You can ask me almost any question.
I have, here we go. It's the Singing Samurai, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Your mic is off. I mean, the question looks great. It looked really important. And now you've lost
your It was. I felt, really earnest in what I was saying. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear it. It's
great.
Lost pages.
It happened.
All right, and we're muting you. All right.
No. A follow-up to that question. Would you... when you said that you have singers studying voice with people that teach a classical technique, is that a maybe two-part question? Did they wish that they had done that sooner? And do you think that studying classical technique should be some kind of a prerequisite? Why is that important?
Good follow-up. Some of my clients have had lessons before. They studied maybe in their undergraduate degree if they went to school, have had those lessons, and coming to me, I make it a requirement for my artists because, like I said, they're going to go out on tour. They're going to be playing all these big shows. It's all about maintaining healthiness. I mean, you hear all the time about artists who have to cancel a show, or artists that go out on tour and are completely different than the studio soundtracks that you hear coming out from them, because they don't have the training. They don't have the training, or they don't have someone who is training them who really understands the way to sing healthy. So yeah, I mean, I have some artists who come to me who have had lessons. I have some who have never had lessons, but as I make it a requirement on my end for them to work with classically trained teachers and teachers who emphasize being trained classically, and how to really utilize those tools to transfer over to whatever style of music that they're singing. I know that you wouldn't think a classical teacher would benefit a hip hop artist, but I see some differences in one of my clients already, and it's phenomenal to see how that works and how it really, really does help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. The voice teachers of the world, thank you immensely.
Glad to help.
That is, and there are some students that are some tough nuts to crack, as it were, when we're where they don't necessarily believe us. And
believe your teachers when they tell you stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
That'd be great. Okay, let's see. I got another question here. I'm just going to read it without. Okay, let's see. This is from Ashley. Ashley, you just want to come on and say your question?
I suppose I could say it audio-wise, if that's okay.
Of course, hit it.
I was just wondering, like when it comes to artists that are, they don't really belong to like one singular genre or category, what kind of direction do you take as someone who is kind of like marketing with them and working with people like them? Like, is there room for people like that, or is it like kind of they have to make a decision on a concrete genre first?
Good question. What's great about the modern music industry is that that's a more common theme now, is to be what we call genre fluid, is where you you kind of have elements to your music and your style that is not straight cookie cutter pop, but there's a little R&B, there's a little bit there's rock aspects depending on the instruments that you're using. I think in the modern music setting, it's almost beneficial to be moldable, to be able to have those different aspects, and you don't necessarily have to define your genre. I work with an artist who, is primarily a singer-songwriter, but is going to be putting out his very first album next month, and it's it's a little bit more like pop with a little bit of some little bit of like not techno, but like a little more technology aspect to it, a little bit of EDM, something like that. So I think it's more beneficial to be fluid in whatever genre that you would like to be in. Most artists come to me already with a preconceived notion of where they stand, and if that's really true to what they are, we go ahead and we market and we brand them in that way. But I think it's better to be moldable and have that kind of variety.
Great. Good question, Ashley. So you undoubtedly, and sorry, I'm maybe I'm being a fanboy a little bit, but you've run into some people.
I've run into some very interesting people.
So, can you name drop, although you're allowed to do that? Or is that too easy? Us poor folk back in the hills of Pennsylvania need some excitement in our lives.
Yes. I can name drop. The only hesitation is that if this is going to end up on social media sites.
It will?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, loud and clear. So you'll have to call. You have to get to know Holly.
Yeah, if you really do want to know details, I will make sure you have my information and we can talk more.
I mean, here's my question. Have you met Ken Tamplin?
No.
Great.
No.
Okay, we have any other questions out there? There's got to be something. Oh,
you can ask me anything. Really anything. You can ask me how hard it is some days. I will tell you.
That's true. Now you have an office in your apartment, or do you have an office that you go to?
I have an office that I go to. So it's not that many people know their way around LA if you're not here all the time. It's about a half hour from where I currently live. And I go there and I have my meetings and my team meets there and those kind of things.
Okay. So is the SNL skit Californians true? Is it like you take the 101 down to,
Yes. You take the 101 out to the beach. You take the 405 south to get downtown, and the 118 west.
What?
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Oh, there's Christian. Yeah, turn your mic on there, Christian.
Hello.
Hi.
So, since you're like in LA, like the place of like many possibilities and stuff like that, is there like a recurring place that like you look for to like book your clients and to like like a recurring place that you can go back to?
Not really. I think that's what's great about being in this industry is there's so many different avenues to meet people. And I will say the biggest thing about being a musician, whether you are the performer yourself or you are part of a team or you have your manager or whoever else you're working with, it is about the connections and the networking. So there are times when I will go to like a networking event for the music industry and I'll just meet people there. Sometimes it's on Instagram. I'll go on Instagram and I'm currently in the process of doing that where I'm, kind of connecting with an individual that I would love to work with as an artist. And then sometimes it's just through friends. One of my clients I met through my roommate, actually. She was like, they're having this show. We should go. I went. I absolutely loved them. And then it kind of just went from there. So it's really taking the time to go network, meet people, use your social media, any outlet where you find someone that you genuinely enjoy their music and you really feel like you have to work with them. It's not so much like you want to, you almost feel like you have to work with them because they're so talented and they're good people and they work really hard.
It's awesome. Thanks, Christian.
Great question.
Kennedy, do you want to come on and ask that, or want me to say it?
Sure. Okay, hi. Was there like a pivotal moment or event that like helped you realize that this was in fact what you wanted to do?
Ooh, good question. I don't know about a pivotal moment. I know that when I was still at IUP, Dr. Bonnick and I had this conversation, and then I think it was summer break, and then I came back and was really like just like nail on the head. Like I knew this is the route I wanted to take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if there was anything specific other than me, just doing some research and kind of having that self-reflection of like, this is it. It feels right. You get that feeling of like, this is my calling. This is kind of where I need to be and what I need to be doing. I would say that here in LA, once I thought about starting a business, I had one of those other kind of moments where I was like, this feels right. This feels what I need to be doing. So I would say maybe those kind of moments.
So you have to sort of discover it.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it comes to you and you just like, I know it, that's it. Sometimes you have to, do what I did and look at maybe some master's programs and really kind of just do some research.
To me, it really, these sort of quests to find our places, it almost mirrors learning how to sing. I mean, you have to discover it. You have to discover it, and you have to discover it on your own. You have to do the work and soul search and talk to folk and it's your life and you should be happy. So you should do what you love. And that's, I think, super important. And that's one of the reasons we're doing these. Yeah.
And if you wake up at the beginning of the day and you are excited, you're like, I get to do what I love today. That's where you know where you are. That's where you know this is what I'm meant to be doing. Are some days hard? Absolutely. There are days when I would pull my hair out. But then there are days where, you're working with people and something just comes together and you're like, wow, this is incredible. And it's a day-to-day thing. But like you said, it's really a discovery. It's a journey. And you really do have to kind of just figure it out for yourself.
That's awesome. So bringing it back to, when would you say when someone is working really hard and they're working on their skills, when would be the best time to call you up and say, I think I got it. I want to sing for you. I want to do my thing for you and see what you think?
For me, I would say anytime. I specialize in working with baby artists. So they're artists that really don't have a lot of traction yet. They're artists that we are building them as musicians. We're building, their brand as a musician. They're just kind of starting out in their career. And I picked that specifically because then I get to be very hands-on with them. Whereas some of, if I work with an artist, it's a little bit bigger and more seated in what they're doing. I don't necessarily get to work on all the fun stuff with them. It's more like they kind of know what they want to do. They just need someone to maybe do their negotiations or stuff like that. But I personally, and I know my team, if someone were to say, I want to sit down, I want to play my songs for you, I want some feedback, I would say anytime that you feel like you are ready for this, at least ready for someone to, sit down with you and really talk about stuff. For me, it's anytime. Some managers don't give people the time of day. Some people say, well, unless you have, X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to give you the time of day. But what's great about the company that I run is that we're boutique. So we really specialize in a lot of things, and that we're small. We take on small artists. So I would say anytime for me.
So would you say that someone like yourself and operating in that manner, is that typical? Would you find, or are you sort of a diamond in the rough?
I would say a little more diamond in the rough, only because a lot of managers in the music industry, they either work for like a management company that has, you know, some bigger clients on their belt, or they just do a lot of independent work. But I think for me and my company and my team is that we are all inclusive of everything that we do as well. So when it comes to being a manager, the typical manager is someone who, you know, they negotiate, they kind of like make sure their artist is doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. But for my team, it's much more than that, which makes us unique, is that we take on, you know, promotion, marketing, PR. We do, you know, some of the legal aspect of it. We do pitching and placement for, you know, getting their music on TV shows and making sure they're getting paid for their music once they put it out into the world. The only thing as a manager that you cannot legally do is is book shows. So that's the one area. That's the one area that, which is a little unfortunate because live performance and shows and touring and stuff is where artists currently are making the most money. But as a manager, I'm not a licensed agent, so I can't book the show, but I'm the person who will sit down and say, here's what my artist needs for these shows, and make sure that the agent books them appropriately. But I would say diamond in the rough, because we really do more, we take on more than we should, but we prefer it that way.
Absolutely. Well, you know that you're going to work hard for your clients, and that's what promotion is invaluable. So that's really awesome. It was when we spoke last week, something that really struck me that you said is, you know, we always think about networking and who you know. You know, are you connected? Do you know this? You know that person? Well, if you haven't worked hard and you're not of the quality, then who you know is a detriment. So they know you and they see you coming. So you have to make sure that you got your you have your fundamentals down and whatever that means to you and your genre, and that it's got to be settled so that you can. And then you go ask someone like Holly here, where else do I need to go? What else do I need? And
exactly. And that's a lot of times when artists come to me, that's the first question they have, is they say, you know, I have my music, I'm ready to, you know, record it. I have this, and this going on. What's the next step? Or what do I need to be thinking about moving forward? And that's where my team takes over and says, you know, we give them this long laundry list of things that, you know, we schedule when things are going to be released, whether it's, you know, social media content, whether it's music, you know, when they're going to be going on tour and all of those kind of things. But it's really, they come to me and say, I've got this, and where do I go? And that's where my team comes in, and also helping them build those connections too. I've been fortunate enough to know some very, very prominent and influential people in the music industry, and so having those connections helps my artists as well.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, if there aren't any other questions, then our time has come to an end. I want to thank you so much. We are so proud of what you're doing, and you know, I talk about you every now and again, and really happy I got you up on my map. You know, so glad that you could be with us today and share this knowledge and experience.
Of course. And like I said, if you guys do have any more questions, you can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Dr. Bronick has my email. You can set up a time to call. I really love this industry, and I love being able to help people. So even if it's, you know, just the random question that you think of one day, just go ahead and reach out. I'd be happy to help. And yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, our broadcast is at an end. The fire is dying. And as always, take care of yourself and each other.